Explain how you really got involved in business in the first place.
Man, I like to say that I was raised by entrepreneur wolves, right? My very first experience when I got into skateboarding was meeting a 19-year-old kid who owned the local skate shop, who kind of gave me my first break. And he was super entrepreneurial, and I used to spend a lot of time with him when I was 11, 12, 13 years old, and he was starting company after company and store after store, and then all of this distribution company, all this stuff. And then the people I was closest to in skateboarding then moved back and started a company with him in Dayton, Ohio. And now it's like, and then my other pro skateboarder friend was also started his own company. And this has all happened between the ages of 11 and 15. So it was, to me, this is just what you did.
But what about seeing that really got you interested in it?
It was just something that was a part of me, that I just started creating companies and going for it at a very young age, just thinking that's what I was supposed to do.
Well, and you've referred to yourself, in recent days as a serial entrepreneur. How about what now do you like about starting companies?
Oh man, it's like, this day and age now, I believe there's rules and processes, both diligence from a financial side and diligence from a brand and creative side, that all need to come together before you would even consider doing a company. And I would say, because I have not created that filter the right way, and a lot of the stuff that I've created and purchased or been a part of over the last 20 years, that they suffer with it today, right? So something that's incredibly exciting for me going forward is just being a whole lot more thorough and from both aspects of creating a brand, especially from understanding the consumer, understanding the distribution, understanding the scalability, understanding ultimately the why of the brand, like building a brand for not out of like, hey, let's get together and make this brand, that'd be cool. Building a brand and being able to look at its legacy for 50 years, right? Building it forever, so.
To what extent do you think, though, that was the best thing you had going for you back when you were younger? The fact that you were so naive to the process and didn't know everything involved, that you just kind of threw yourself into it and figured it out as you went?
None.
Really?
None. I don't have any, I'm a gunslinger, right? I've made millions, I have spent millions just going for it, right? And that's on all aspects of everything. Like, if I decide I'm gonna do it, the gift is like stop at nothing execution, right? It's the problem was, in the gunslinging days, it's just more like, I didn't listen to anyone, didn't want to hear it from anyone. I'll do it and do it myself. I'll hire people to do it, let's just get it done. And none of that's effective, none of it.
So what have you found to be most effective? The business planning?
It's about like putting a stake in the ground of what success is and going and doing it, right? Not just say, oh, I want to do this, let's go for it, and then hopefully it becomes successful, right? And that's what I've basically done on everything that I've done, period, top to bottom, up until like the last maybe couple years.
I think it's interesting, given how much success you've now had, to talk about what you learned from some of the struggles, one of which was, I think, the Skate Dreams movie, or Street Dreams. Yeah. You end up having to pay the theaters to, air the movies. Why do you think that didn't work out, and what did you learn from that?
Oh, man, I tell you what, that was on some like balls to the wall, like next level move, right? So I decided I wanted to write a skateboard feature film out of the idea of like, all these corny feature films keep happening, right? Like, skateboarding is always made to look so stupid in film. So I wrote a treatment, right? Took it all around, and nobody had any interest. Like, you gotta get a writer, I was like, oh man, like, I gotta get a writer, like, and then one of my friends was like, oh, I write scripts. And I'm like, man, what? I've known you for 7 years. I've never heard you once mention you are a screenwriter.
Don't tell me you hired him.
And this kid produces a screenplay that he's written. I'm like, what the hell? So I send it to like an agent that I know. This is pure San Diego, way before Hollywood, and they're like, yeah, it's actually pretty good. So I set out on a journey 4 months of him at my house in San Diego where I would pace every day and just fire dialogue. And we wrote this entire movie. Now it's like, I wrote a script, right? So now I take it back to the agent, man, I wrote a script. They're like, it's too core, like there's no, like, this would never work, you know? And it's like, it's a skateboard movie and there's all this f***s and and all this stuff. You can't do that. I'm like, f that. This is like keeping it real, right? So then I find a producer friend of mine who I'd produced a short with who was like I could produce a movie. I'm like, you're my guy. Let's produce this shit. So then he puts together a budget. It was $750,000, and so the budget was $750 to cut. I could go into the depth of this, but I'll cut it short. $750,000 budget. I ended up spending $1.8 million of my own money. Never got any help, never asked for help. That's how over budget it was. Nobody would distribute it or give me any type of deal because it was rated R with all the and the cursing and all this. It's a beautiful movie outside of all the cursing. Nobody would give me any distribution, and I was like, man, this, man, this thing's going to theaters. I don't win unless this thing's in theaters. So I four-walled the thing and then put it in like 30 theaters and then did like a nationwide tour where I went and did signings to like promote it in every city that I went to. And I think, you know, I can't remember what the money that it earned back, it didn't matter because it went to the guys that I four-walled it with anyway. But now, you know, however many years later, I want to say maybe 2 months ago, I was going through my financial stuff for the month, and there was a check in there. There was in one of the entries for Street Dreams, it was like $17. And I was like, man, what is this? And they're like, oh yeah, you got a check for iTunes sales. I'm like, what? What? This is major. So yeah, that's the journey.
How did you get involved in shoe design?
Early on, then I was being approached by Vans where they were talking about giving me a signature shoe, right? And that led ultimately when when they decided, the guys from George Clothing decided they wanted to do footwear, they had asked me if I wanted to do a signature shoe, and I had already been doing so many sketches and had so many ideas. So when I designed, you know, I really designed my very first shoe, you know, and then went on to design a shoe basically each year. So I began to teach myself the process of sketching and bringing it into Illustrator and coloring it up and doing all this stuff. It was really important to me. And then I decided to make a deal with them of like, let me do a deal where I present designs the same way all the designers do, right? So how it would work is all the designers would come in and present all their designs, and then the sales team would pick the ones they liked the most. And I said, let me do that, only let me get a royalty on each shoe that I do. So I would show up at those.
So there's more, I mean, you might not get as much up front, but there's more potential upside if it's successful.
Right. So, you know, because one shoe can make you a ton of money. It's like the lotto for the skate community. And so I would go into those shoe design meetings and with the razzle dazzle, right? I would have the most intricate boards laid out, the theory laying down and sell, and they literally would like pick every shoe that I had, and then I would just like hand it off to one of the designers, getting paid like 60 grand a year to finish the thing off and go make it real. And at one point I had a third of the entire line. I was getting, I was making so much money off shoe royalties. And when Z Quicksilver came in to buy DC, they were like, what is this? Like, well, how is there like one of your pro skaters getting paid on like 35 shoes? And they're like, oh yeah, we made this deal with him. So part of when they sold the company to Quicksilver is like I had to completely walk away from designing anything besides my signature product.
Really?
Yeah. So, but at the time I was just just beginning to start working on Rob Big, and I was like, and I moved to LA full time. Was like, all right, I'm going this direction anyway. That was my last hustle.
The Fantasy Factory where we're doing this interview was the setting for much of Rob Big and the latter, Fantasy Factory series. You could kind of creatively place products in here that you own or have an equity stake in, and have them appear in the show. And you had to, I believe, work that out with MTV to get the right to do that. How difficult was it to work it out?
Well, the reality of it was I was so ahead of my time that I tricked them, right? So
you tricked them.
I tricked them, right? So the reality of it is Rob Big was this great success, but I didn't want Rob Big to define me, right? So at the time, I was like, I'm not doing it anymore. I had sold them ridiculousness during the final season of Rob Big. Ultimately because, and I read an article with Vinny DeBona about America's Funniest Home Videos, $500 million global syndication. I was like, I'm gonna make a cool version of America's Funniest Home Videos. Sold it to them on the spot back then.
And it's now the top show on MTV.
Yeah, but back then, they were like, no, we want you to do another reality show. We'll do them both. Right, and then they offered me all the money to do another reality show or a fourth season of Rob Big. You can do them both, and I was like, man, I was deciding over a weekend, like, man, I don't want to do a reality show. I don't want it to be compared to Rob Big. And then I was like, man, you're being a pussy, and they're gonna pay you all this money. You might as well do it. So my only request in the deal was, well, first I wrote out the entire concept of Fantasy Factory that weekend, and which I called the Fantasy Life, where it was going to be every episode was going to be about another one of my businesses, and I would produce it the same way I did with Rob Big, in sort of a comedic way, And they're like, oh, we love it, we'll take it, let's go. And so when I did the deal, I just requested that I own all of my integration rights. And so if it's anything that I own, they can't say no to. If I carved out every brand that I had, they couldn't say no to. And then when it came to big potential corporate brand sponsorships, we were 50-50, meaning they could never put anything in, and I could kill anything they could kill somebody from me, right? But the problem is since I would write everything, I would write these immensely intricate integrated brand partnerships with their advertisers. So they wouldn't care, because it's like, oh man, you're killing it for our advertisers. And then I would go do a big deal on the side with the advertiser, right? So by setting it up like that, it became, basically like a integrated marketing machine, sort of veiled in fun and absurd comedy.
Explain the role that your sister's boyfriend played in you getting involved in skateboarding in the first place.
Well, I think I looked up to old Jason Hayes so much, right? And he was just a cool dude.
What's his name? You gotta give him a shout out.
Jason Hayes, the great Jason Hayes. But he showed up one day to school, and he had 4 bandanas on his right leg, 4 on his left, 4 on each arm, and 2 spiked belts across the waist and chest. And I was like, coolest dude I've ever seen, right? And he just started skating, and I was like, man, like, he moved up and out of my school, and I took over the legacy of the 16 bandana game, and bought my first skateboard from him, and he was the leader of the skate crew, the Street Rats, and they wouldn't let me in the Street Rats, even though I had gotten so good so quick. So I had to form my own crew, and that was the Wild Grinders. And that was, I remember looking in my mirror in my bedroom, and I had a One Wild and Crazy Guy sticker on my mirror, and I was like, Wild Grinders, all right, that's me. At 11 years old, that's when I became a Wild Grinder.
And how much time would you spend while in school thinking about tricks you wanted to do?
Man, I don't know. Have you ever read the book Outliers?
A little bit of it.
Oh, it's fundamentally it's hard work alone, and a lot of chance has to lead towards finding great success, and to me it was like the idea of calling the skate shop that had a ramp and being like, yo, if I get 10 people to show up there, can I skate for free? Like, who does that, right? And which leads to, like, you going there and then them being like, you're amazing, like, and then giving you all access. So you would go after school every day and get better and better, and then you're, and so swiftly and quickly, you decided at all costs you were going to be a professional skateboarder and nothing else. So instantaneously that it was nothing else mattered to that point, you know.
So you were pretty driven and ambitious growing up?
100%, like not even like eyes on the prize, like.
By what age?
I was 11.
By 11 you were,
yeah.
Okay.
Eyes on the prize, like threatening my mom with like, I'm moving to Cali the day I turned 14, right? I think that was it or something.
When you moved out of the house at like 16 years old, didn't you, while still in high school?
Yeah, well, no, it was right after I had just stopped going to school.
Okay.
And she probably remembers it like that, because she literally, I literally moved.
You broke your mom's heart.
I literally moved a mile away. And it was like screaming, crying, and blaming my dad. How could you let him do this? How could you let him do this? You know, and it's like, what? I'm like moving, and then, you know.
How tough was it on your parents when 13, 14, 15 years old, you're traveling all around skating?
I mean, they may have said something different, but I don't think it was whatsoever. I think it's, God bless them for giving the trust to these guys that I went all those places with, you know, that they trusted them enough that they would keep me safe and taking me all over the country, you know, so it was cool.
After your junior year of high school, you're a half a credit short of graduating. You easily finished that last half a credit up. You graduate school a year early to go from Ohio to California to pursue your skateboarding dream. What was that conversation like with your parents and the principal, trying to convince them this is really what you should do?
Well, this is one of those situations in my life. I like to call it the gift and the curse, where I have this sporadic memory, right? So I don't really hang on to anything negative. That's the gift side. But I also forget a lot of interesting things. One of which is the story of me sitting down with my parents at school, with the principal and guidance counselor, and convincing them that I'm no longer going to school, which I don't remember not even one bit of. But it's like funny to me, like the idea of me sitting there and like, I don't know how this group of people I don't know how I sold them and they all approved it. Like, you're a 16-year-old kid, you shouldn't be able to talk your way out of going to school anymore. It's like so bizarre to me, but in fact, it worked. You know, my mom says that everybody tried to tell you, but it's like, okay, I get it. Everybody's trying to tell me you're my parents. Like, you have authority to say, no, you have to.
It's really rare a kid from Ohio, of all places, becomes a skateboarding superstar. Generally, it's California kids, because that's where it's most popular. But where were some of the places you got to go for competition? You literally were all over the world.
Yeah, well, no, I think my very first contest when I turned pro was in Münster, Germany, right? So it was like 0 to 60. Like, you know, I had left school, and that might have been part of my sales pitch. Like, I'm going to Germany, which I still can't believe that I didn't go with anybody. Like, me and my friend just went over there, had no idea how to navigate Europe. Like, I was like, it was just complete chaos, you know. But my very first pro contest, I was doing this move called the Ollie Impossible lip slide, and it was so above everybody that was pro at the time, right? So in that contest, it was just this like, what? Like, this like kid has this like super trick, and in the finals inside this arena, all the fans knew that I was doing that trick at the end of my run each time, and now I'm 16 years old going through my run in the finals, and as I'm headed towards the rail, they all start to stomp their feet because they know it's coming, and it's like gets faster and faster. I'm like, what? Like, in my young mind, I'm like, what? And I just remember like blacking out almost as I'm like going to do the trick, and my feet were all over the thing, and then when I hit the ground and I had rode away, like that place like erupted. I was like, you know, a magical experience. Got 4th place. It was the best I ever did in a professional skateboarding contest for the rest of my 20-year career.
Really?
Yeah. So never got higher than 4th, and that was it.
So you're in your early 20s and you're making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. You're traveling the world, as a professional skateboarder. What's life like?
Man, it was bizarre, man. I really was lazy, Smoked a lot of weed in that era, and wasn't committed to the craft, right? I think in that 21 to 24 era, I was very lost, right? Skateboarding wasn't giving me the fulfillment that I needed, right?
It wasn't?
Nah, so I was trying all this different stuff, like trying all these different skateboard companies, and I was getting hurt all the time, and
Why wasn't it giving you the fulfillment you needed?
I just didn't, it just wasn't enough, you know what I mean? It didn't feel like success to me, right? I was still like, there was still so much hunger for what success could be, but misguided hunger, where it was like I didn't have a stake in the ground to chase after anything. And it really wasn't till, I had a couple shoes now, right? And made some good money, and I'd begun designing the shoes, and at the time, Ken Block in DC, I was 24 years old, and they were basically like, your best years are behind you. We appreciate what you've done for us over the years, and we think we're gonna give you one more shoe and give you a 2-year contract to basically say thank you, and we think you're done. And
how'd you take it?
I remember sitting in there and looking at him and being like, man, I know it's not lip service, I'm not saying to say it, but in 2 years I'm gonna be a completely different person, and there's no way that this is, that I'm done and that this is the end, and I'm not even gonna say it, I'm just gonna prove it. And I literally left that place, started searching for hypnotists, right? And found the hypnotist, the great Dr. George Pratt, who wrote a book called Hyper Success, right? Unleashing your true inner belief that you believe you are meant to be successful. And I got hypnotized for success. And then literally in that 2-year span, became the best skateboarder of my entire career, but also to the very top of the industry. And then from that point on, only signed 2-year deals with DC for the next 10 years, because I was like, no, 2 years from now, you're gonna pay me even more, and 2 years after that. So I wouldn't even sign, everybody was signing 3- and 5-year deals. Up until 2 years ago, I signed a 7-year deal. Up until that point, at 38, I had only signed 2-year deals because of him telling me, we're gonna give you 2, we think we're hooking you up. And so now it's and now it became the benchmark of, no, every 2 years I'm going to be so much better and bigger than I was the previous 2 years, which.
So this hypnotist that you went to, you really believe this hypnotist was responsible for, or played a critical role in you becoming successful?
I believe so, yes.
Why?
I think it's understanding the period where you were in your life, and then ultimately, why were you so scattered for so long? Why were you so lost? And why did you spend 3 or 4 years desiring and wishing rather than working? And was it just that conversation of doubting me and someone questioning me that really turned on that much of a fire? It seems unlikely, and to then go through that process and go through this idea of only working on embedding subconsciously that you believe you were meant to be successful, nothing more, nothing less. And then you go and you make a run like I made. It's hard to believe otherwise, that it didn't have some sort of grand connection to it, I
want to go through some of the injuries that you've had over the years skateboarding. Why are you only able to play video games for a short period of time?
Well, that is true. I blew out my thumb, hurt my thumb real bad, and it had a cast, and it was so annoying when I was trying to skate, so I cut the cast off, and now this thumb's down. right? Like this thing, it's like arthritis, like immediately. If I try to play video games for too long, it just fades.
Really?
Yeah, it's sad.
So what happened when you tried to switch a 5.0 the 9 at Beverly Hills High School and slip? Am I saying it right? I don't even know what the hell that is, but.
Oh man, you're blowing my mind right now. Well, have you ever been hitting the shin really hard? No.
I don't know.
Man, damn, okay. Man,
I'm the least athletically gifted person there.
Okay, well, this is what happened to me, right? We call it getting popsicled in skateboarding, where I basically jumped off of down 9 stairs and landed on the skateboard to where it went literally directly into my anus, right? Now, the pain was so intense and psychotic, and I had this vision. There was all these kids there, and my vision was like laying in a hospital with my feet up over my leg, feet up like this, and someone stitching me away here, right? was the vision that I had on the ground there. But it ended up being just like what happens when you get hit in the shin, where the pain just kind of dissipates after a little bit and there was no real damage, right? So that is what we call getting popsicled. You do never, ever want to have that happen.
So explain the issue with the sprained ankle.
I think in what I believe, like in that era, there was so much pressure on me to be a skateboarder that I started, getting hurt became an outlet, right? Where it was like, oh, he's hurt, he can't skate. Like, why isn't he producing like footage and getting photos? Like, oh, he's hurt again, oh, his ankle's bad, so it became sort of this sort of thing, and it built up a bit of a bone spur, right? And then I was doing a trick and the bone spur broke off and lodged in the joint, right? Which meant I had to get immediate surgery to get it removed. But once I got out of surgery, and it was intense, man. It was like, I lived by myself. I had no help. Like, I woke up in the middle of the night. It hurt so bad. Like I was chewing the carpet, like grabbing the painkillers that give me did not work. I literally stayed gripped to the floor for like 12 hours in pain. And was like, I will never have surgery again in my life.
So what's the deal with the chain wallet scar?
The chain wallet scar came back from that Moonster contest that first year where I actually had done a trick over the hip and had locked up, and I used to wear a chain wallet, and I hit the ground so hard on my hip that I literally have a scar that goes across from here from the chain going in, and that was the final time that I had the chain wallet. No more looking cool over function, no more fashion over function.
You recently said you feel like you're getting too old for MTV, yet you just signed a massive 140 episode deal.
Yeah.
So what happened there?
I think the reality of it is, for sure this was the last season of Fantasy Factory, right? Shot the whole thing, broke the world record, jumping the car backwards 90 feet, like, oh, did it, like did a whole show, did like a singing speech to say goodbye, hour-long special. And then they're like, hey, will you do it again? Will you do one more? And I'm like, no, right? Because it comes out, and then Ridiculousness and Fantasy Factory together just had done so well. And, for MTV in general, it wasn't on purpose, but I was kind of threatening them, not threatening, but basically saying I don't want to be on MTV when I'm 40. I don't want to be Kurt Loder. And, as we were talking, right, when they wanted me to do, they're like, do Fantasy Factory again. I said, man, honestly, it's gonna have to be so much money that I'd be stupid not to do it. And then a couple weeks later, they're like, how about this? I'm like, okay, when do we start? But ultimately I said, look, let's do one big deal. Because the big scary threat for them was I'm walking away from ridiculousness, right? Because this would be my last season of ridiculousness. This next one coming up contractually, and so the scary part for them is if I walked away from that, because of what sort of a monster that is from the amount of revenue it generates, because it rates 24 hours a day. Don't matter if you play it at 9 a.m. or play it at 10 at night, it's rating. And so I said, I'll do one big deal if we open up everything, and this is sort of like this is Rob's run into 42, to do the rest of all this stuff. And they were like, absolutely, let's go, you know. And it was, you know, it's obviously the most significant financial deal I've ever done in my entire life. And it was painless and cool, you know, like I negotiated it one-on-one with the top people, and without dealing with lawyers or, you know, or agents or anybody, you know. That's the relationship that I built with them over the years, that it's ultimately anything and everything that I want to do at the network or potentially in the future. You know, I talk to the people that make the decision all the way down to how much I could bully them for money, you know. And so as much as I would like to evolve into just being a pure businessman, which I enjoy so much more, I'm gonna be on TV for a while here.
I want to run through some of the stunts you've done over the years and just get your immediate reaction, or what comes to mind. Getting mauled by a tiger.
That was scary, right? The scary part was like, it was biting my neck because of my hoodie, you know, and stuff like that. And it was the second time, right? Because you hate doing it twice, because the first time I panicked and didn't let him attack me. I dropped first and then he just landed on me. So it's like, you gotta do it again. In order to get a tiger to attack you, which I can't even believe is legal.
There's actually a place in California that you can go to that does this.
Mind-numbing. The fact that it even exists, someone was like, yeah, I think there's like a play, they do it for stunts. They would probably let you do it if you did it for your show. I'm like, what? And you have to taunt the tiger. It opens up the cage, you gotta be like, come on, tiger. You know, you gotta taunt the thing, and then it guns after you, and it's like, I know you are a trained tiger, but this is just like, you know, and you get laid down, and then that particular time, like, it was like, ow, and they were like, put it down. You know, like as if I was like a chew toy, right? Because he was like mauling on, he had gotten a hold of my hoodie and was like chewing on my neck, right? So that was a pretty interesting experience.
Getting bit by a shark?
I would say that's one of the absolute scariest things I've ever done in my life, because there's such a great unknown, right? You have no idea how powerful it is. You have no idea what it's gonna be. And furthermore, I'd never actually scuba dove before, right? So I'm just even getting used to like being underwater, like was super scary at first, and trying to figure that out. Then the shark has to get you here, right? So you have to hold this wrist and use the leverage, because if it gets a hold of here and gets a hold of the arm, it'll just shatter your arm, right? So I'm like, man, ain't this some shit, man? What the fuck, man? This isn't even funny. And then I was down there with tuna on my arm on a sunken ship in the Bahamas, 60 feet down. Like, man, what in the, there's sharks everywhere, and like, just like, oh, you're trying to get a shark to bite you. Now, when that thing came in, and just wham, right? Like, it's like, you can't feel anything because your adrenaline is like so hardcore, you can't feel anything. And I just had this like moment of like, oh my God, like, man, this is like a real shark on me, man. Like, this is like, what the f? This is crazy, right? And when that thing let go, it was just like this incredible, like, and I remember swimming back to the boat, and I just told myself, man, stop. And look down at like all these sharks in the sunken ship. Like, you are never going to see something like this or experience something like this again. Like, put this in your memory. So I'm just like, okay, good, let's go. You know, right out of there. And so it's an amazing thing to have got to do, you know what I mean?
How about surfing with Laird Hamilton?
That was the only time that I really almost died, right?
It looked like you got beat up pretty good there.
I'll tell you what's great about that is gnarly people like Laird Hamilton, right? They're lacking, there's a self-protective gene that you have that most people instinctually self-preserve. So they don't get scared, or they get super scared and protect themselves. He doesn't have that, right? And the problem with people like that is they think everybody else can do things that they do. So when I was like, could I get told, could I get in? Easy, nothing, be nothing, easy. So by the time we got out there, I had to wait 10 extra days, right? And it was a great episode of Test Your Man Level, you know what I mean? It was so great.
You're in like a mansion in Hawaii.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, don't get me wrong, but that whole episode of like throwing the spears and climbing and just like, you know, these manly men, it's so great. And I'm gonna go work out with Laird this weekend. I wanna shoot another episode with Laird. So I sent him a text like, hey, I'd like to shoot this episode. He's like, why don't you come to my house and I'll show you the treatment and you can decide if you wanna shoot the episode. I was like, okay, and I'm gonna have to go like just get all manly with Laird. But what had happened is the thing with getting towed into a wave is you usually face what you're about to do, right? And the difference is it comes in behind you and you're like, oh, this is crazy. You know, keep in mind, I've never surfed. That was the first time I'd ever surfed a wave, was when I got towed into an 18-foot wave.
Did you think, though, you might have a chance, given you were a professional skateboarder, and maybe there's some similarities?
I guess the thing I was worried about was getting up like on the ski. I tried to jet ski before and couldn't do it many years ago. So now, like, that was what I was afraid of. And then the spookiest part is like, you're just laying on your back out in the ocean. It just feels like there's just sharks all underneath you. It's just like, but just got annihilated by that thing. It's like a house falling on you. And what had happened is I got caught by 2 waves, and I was down for so long that I just finally like was trying to hang on, trying to find the surface, trying to hang on, and finally was like nothing left to give. And right when I gave up, I like popped up, and he come flying in and grabbed me, and he's like, we are done. You know, because he knew I almost died, right? He knew how dangerous that was, and
really,
for how long I was down, right? And
how long do you think you were down for?
I don't know, it felt like half hour. It was probably like a minute. But yeah, he did it. He was spooked by that in like the most major way, like, and I know for sure he's like, feels like we dodged a bullet on that one, you know. So
did you think that was it?
100%. Like, really had to give up. Like, had nothing. Like, had to give up. Was trapped and like just had to give up. And kept fighting fighting with everything I could, like struggling, trying everything I could to finally like my arms couldn't move. Like I couldn't even, like, cause had no oxygen left, and just finally like went to pass out and popped up when I went to pass out. It's trippy.
Car stunts, yeah, your favorite one?
You know, cars are cool in the sense of, you know, I think jumping that backwards world record was fun, pretty easy. Jumping the car the first time 100 feet was pretty easy, but flipping the car was super sketchy, right? Only because they never figured it out. Paid these guys all this money to engineer it and figure it out. It hadn't been done since the 70s, and you know, they had tested it a couple times and just destroyed the car, and they were like, we got it, we're pretty good, we're pretty sure it'll work, you know, and that's why when we went to go do it, the landing ramp was so short that I had to go exactly 42, because if I went 43, I'd overshoot it. If I went 41, I'd undershoot it. And I'm like, why would you even, like, why would you not just build the landing ramp bigger? They're like, well, too late now. and then I had to line it up within 12 inches. And I'm like, man, why would it not just be like, I gotta get close, and, you know, and so now I can't even line it up. So, and keep in mind, I have to just try it. It's like, you know, Super Bowl commercial, season premiere, Fantasy Factory, this huge multi-million-dollar Chevy deal, like big, fully integrated multi-platform brand partnership, and you gotta get out and dance, you know? So I had to put tape on the windshield to be able to line it up with one eye, because I couldn't get it to go straight without doing that. And then, so it's like basically driving at this thing, 42, 43, 41, 42, 43, 41, 42, 42. And like, as it went off, I just closed both eyes and just, when it came to like, like it was like literally my life started over. It was like literally like my entire existence as a man was on pause till after I got through that stunt, right? And when it was like an awakening of like, oh my God, I can't believe that this is in my highlight reel. And super thrilling, man, super thrilling. Without a doubt, one of the greatest things I've ever done.
So MTV provided money to go shoot a pilot, and apparently the pilot for what turned out to be Robin Big was in such disarray, and you were so closely connected with it that you just really didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. How true was that?
I walked into MTV with the song, "People Let Me Tell You About My Best Friend," right? Like, where it's called Robin Big Black, and it's the unlikely odd couple. It's a reality odd couple best friends. They were like, doesn't make sense. Doesn't even make sense. Like, it's gotta have a hook, it needs a script, right? And after talking to me, they decided, we want to make Rob Dyrdek's Rules to Success. You're the star, you're the one, you're the guy, you're the business guy, you do all this stuff. I'm like, nobody even knows who I am. Like, it doesn't make any sense. And so we shot the pilot, Rob Dyrdek's Rules to Success, and rule number 1 is always surround yourself with great people. They made us write an entire script, and then they were sitting all the executives were sitting in the living room as we were shooting, like, pump up the energy, pump up the energy. It was so bizarre. And that show sucked. But thank God, like the head executive at the time knew that there was something there, right? And because first scene was actually a scripted scene of me and him talking in the kitchen, and then he made a comment of like he could run around a full block, and I'm like, no fucking chance you could run around the block. Yeah, I could run around. I'm like, there is no chance you could run the length of this block, right? So it's like, we immediately went off script, and like the beauty of me and his chemistry immediately started flowing like right out the gate. But luckily that executive knew that there was potential in it and brought in a story editor. He went through all of it and was like, no, this is not a show about all of his friends and surrounding yourself with good people. It's literally a best friend comedy. Like, this is super unique, and he convinced them of that, and we basically stripped the pilot back to just really what Robin Big is, and it went full circle all the way back to the best friends buddy comedy, and which became the eventual pilot, which got the show picked up.
So you're and it ends up turning into a highly successful show, Robin Big. You have a hit MTV show, things are going well. Then 3 seasons in, it ends up ending really abruptly and prematurely, because I guess friction between you and Big Black. How difficult a period was that for you?
It was a strange period, right? Because it was the struggle of like, you're also, I think both me and him, he was struggling with, I had been a pro skateboarder for years, so me transitioning to mainstream fame was relatively smooth, right? Where for him, it was the idea that, man, he was like working security 2 years earlier, and now he's on television, right? It was a much different dynamic, but I think we both struggled with, I didn't want to be known as like Rob from Robin Big. Like, I wanted to be, I was doing Street Dreams and Street League and all this business stuff. Like, I wanted to be known for that, and I think he didn't want to be known for like the sidekick, right? So that created a lot of that tension between me and him, and ultimately.
And also, I mean, wasn't there like a financial end too? Because I mean, while you're viewed as kind of equals on screen because you're, co-stars of the show, I think were making more money than him. Well, he thought that was unfair, but also
really. In that era, we were paid the same in that era. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we were paid the same in that era.
But you're also on the back end more involved in the creative process, and it's ultimately
but he also didn't want to be a part of that either. Right? Like, it wasn't he didn't want to, like, he just wanted to show up and shoot, right? So it wasn't, I don't think any of that was really ultimately bothersome to him. He had started his own clothing line and making a ton of money on the side too, using that media platform the same way that I was making all these ancillary dollars. I think it was more the fundamental struggle of wanting to not be so connected to each other, right? And ultimately, after we had a big blowout creatively over like an idea, because he knows I would write all the ideas, and then he was going at me by saying this idea is whack, right? So,
well, because you guys had to stop shooting even at times because things got so tense between
Oh my
the two
God,
of you.
things were so tense at certain times. It's funny now that I think about it, but we literally would film some of the funniest things that we have ever done, and like we'd be losing it, and then walk away and not talk to each other. You know what I mean? Like, it was super, super bizarre.
How tough was that for you that, here you'd worked so long to have this successful show, finally it becomes successful, and then it's like kind of pulled out from under you?
It wasn't for me because I rather than sitting back and letting it go, I sold them ridiculousness, right? And they were like, do your own reality show, right? So for me, it was a little bit different because it was like, we know what you're doing and we don't want to stop you. You know what I mean? Do it, like, we know you're creating the show, you're writing all the ideas, like, do that for another show, right? So that's why it wasn't quite the same. I was ready to make that transition.
You were?
Yeah, big time, big time.
Why did you decide to create Street League Skateboarding?
It's simple, it's skateboarding is one of the most amazing sports in the world, right? It is driven by progression. It is limitless by design, right? There is nothing else in the world like it. There's no other sport in the world that will relentlessly evolve and progress because all other sports are limited by basically the function of the body and their existing rules, right? And for me, there was all these corporate media companies that had tried to basically use our sports, lump action sports as a whole together and put skateboarding in that when skateboarding is its own massive industry by itself. And it was just time for skateboarding to have its own proper competitive series that was ran by skateboarders.
Apparently all the major skateboard companies just did not think you could do it. And then your first press release that comes out, you're announcing the exclusive signings of the top 10 biggest skateboarders in the world. Explain the process that was involved with actually making those deals happen.
Yeah, I mean, that it was easy, right? It's like, who really lost their mind was like the ESPNs and the Mountain Dews and the NBCs were like, what? Right? Because it's like, how could he go and do this, right? But the reality was there was no loyalty from the best in the world to any of those other contests. They didn't care about him. Half the guys didn't even go. So a lot of the guys that I was even signing exclusively to the league were the superstars that would never even think about going to an X Games or a Mountain Dew contest, right? So that allowed, that basically authenticated what I was doing, that allowed me to go and get my ESPN deal, that allowed me to close these big sponsorship deals to basically underwrite the company in the first year.
What's been the biggest challenge so far?
Man, I think every aspect about it has been an incredible challenge, but it's the idea of creating a sports entertainment property that can scale and draw in a crossover audience while maintaining the authenticity for your core audience, right? It's a fine line on a lot of different aspects of how you do it. So it's that, and the reality of it is how I created the business model and what I thought it was. The first year I did it compared to what it is today couldn't be light years from each other, and that is relentless adaptation and changing the thought process and way of even understanding what it is you're doing and why over the last couple of years too. which has been incredibly difficult.
Well, and I was speaking to your Street League Skateboarding president, Brian Atlas, and he was telling me that the goal is to create a global platform to engage audiences year-round through your content. And you want to create a league like, you know, the UFC or the NFL or Major League Baseball. I know you recently gave up some equity in the company and taking on some venture capital dollars. How do you think that'll help?
I think what we were also lacking is that eye of like really, really high level experienced business partners, right? And the guys at Causeway Partners, you know, they are partners in the Boston Celtics and the San Francisco 49ers. So their level of guidance and capital to kind of help us evolve and go to the next level is something that we really needed. You know, I think we needed to kind of, we're still like mom and pop shop, and it's time for us to turn it into a true sports property.
I know you're close with UFC president Dana White. Mm-hmm. What have you learned from him?
I think from not only him and Lorenzo, you know, who was partners in, you know, the CEO of the UFC, countless, nonstop, any and everything that they do. They will give me access to they'll show me like sponsorship and what they're getting paid. They'll talk to me about how they're doing their brands, their television deals, how they're expanding their media and what's working and what's not working. It's like the level of insight that they share with me on as I'm trying to build Street League is unprecedented.
10 years from now, where do you want Street League Skateboarding to be?
I think it's exactly what we believe it will be, right? It will be a global platform for skateboarding and with a complete ecosystem of brands and media and live events and Little League that goes to amateur series, that goes to semi-pro, that leads to Street League and leads to the championship, right? It will be the premier global skateboarding platform, period.
So tell me about this thing.
Well, you know, this is, what do you do with your old stunt cars when you break a world record for jumping a car backwards and kickflip one? I guess you just keep them laying around your warehouse, you know?
You retire it, right?
You do. But what am I gonna do when I move out of here? You know, it's like I can't get rid of them. You've experienced this great fear and joy inside each of these things. You just kind of want to keep them forever, you know? And of course, we've got the world's largest skateboard. This thing is just like a piece of art, you know? I'll probably put this somewhere and build a house around it one day.
Isn't it going to be pretty difficult to transport?
It's always difficult to transport.
You have to give a demonstration of how it's done first.
No, shit. Come on, I must be down here coaching you, man. Come on, man.
You're going to be down there coaching me. You don't want to go off first?
No, it's just like, man, it's just like, how many times? It's just like boring for me. It's like, come on, man. You got to get up there and feel it, man. You don't want someone up there to steal your shine, man. Ain't nobody stealing your shine on this.
Thank you.
Hey, you want a basketball to take a shot? Man, you want to be? I should alley-oop you, and when you jump, you try to shoot it in.
That's freaky. Oh, screw this.
Go for the front flip. This is indoor cliff diving.
I think I'm just gonna try and like shoot it first and make it into the pit so I don't kill myself.
Here we go. Oh man, I tell you what, we almost had some face over here, man. We almost had some face. Man, you so focused on that shot, man, you almost caught your chin right here. You can just run and jump back up that way, so you don't gotta go all the way back around. Powerhouse it. This time you gotta dunk.
Any more pointers?
Man, maybe you should give it a soft touch, you know what I mean?
A soft touch?
Yeah.
Did I give it a hard touch the last time?
Yeah, last time you just tried to throw it in there rather than just sort of shoot it in there, you know what I mean?
All right.
This will make good for a good still photo too. So like you want to get that like Michael Jordan arm cooking. Oh man!
Was it close?
Still too aggressive.
So this is now your actual office inside the Fantasy Factory?
Right.
So tell me about this office.
So this is all my signature skateboards, for about the first 12 years of my career, from my very first little Rob board from when I was 16. The one in the corner is actually the Ohio flag. That was after about a year and a half of me being out of Ohio and me thinking like, I love Ohio, man. Like, I'm from Ohio, so I made an Ohio flag with that little alien head in it. And then I went back to Ohio like 6 months later after 2 years and was like, oh, I'll never live here again. This place is crazy. This right here, I was 11 years old when I went to my very first contest after skating 3 weeks. There was a pro skateboarder, Neil Blender, getting in, doing a demo there, and he was getting in his car, and I said, hey man, there's not enough room for you in that board. He's like, you're right, and he threw me this board when I was 11 years old.
Are these all shoes you've designed?
So these are just my current shoes. This is the RD Grand that just went into market. This one, this is the RDX, kind of based off my 10th shoe. That comes out in July. This is just a fan mail, but they're cute. That's why they put them up, right? Because they're so cute. What I thinks make a hero is a strong guy who is funny and who has a brain. This person is Rob Dyrdek. 2 things I admire about him is that he's a good skater. The first thing I want to tell you about my hero is that he's a good skater. I know him from the TV show Ridiculousness. I've been watching his show since I was 5 years old. He has a brand named Alien Workshop. He lives in Los Angeles. Rob Dyrdek is also funny. He made his friend Big Cat enter a beauty pageant. Big Black is his best friend. He has a cartoon called Wild Grinders. I will tell you about Rob and Big. Rob Dyrdek and Big Black are best friends. Rob Dyrdek was on Nitro Circus, but he is a commentator on Fantasy Factory. Fantasy Factory is an adult playground with basketball courts and skating ramps. Now you know why Rob Dyrdek's my hero.
So before we get out of here, can you give me a quick skateboarding tip?
You wanna know what? Screw a tip. I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna grab this board and you're gonna go for it, man.
I don't even know if I've been on a skateboard before,
okay.
Maybe once in my life.
Okay, so you're gonna get hurt, but it doesn't matter, right? Because that's what life's about. Falling and getting back up. You're gonna go for it right now.
Do I stand on it?
Whatever way feels natural. From the looks of it, there may not be a natural way. Stay centered now. Stay centered. Stay centered. Stay centered now. Oh man, that was not staying centered.
I want to go again.
Okay, that was thinking you needed to lean back when you don't got to lean back.
Thinking I want to catch myself before I fall.
Yeah, you don't want to catch yourself. You are planted in the middle of that board. You're gonna go.
See, the funny thing is most people believe in helmets except for skateboarders.
Yeah, well, you know what I'm saying? I'm gonna tell you what you're not gonna do right now. With positive thinking, you are not gonna hit your head. Here we go, fully focused. Fully focused, freedom. Freedom of the open wheel. Freedom.
You gotta push forward.
Freedom, okay, let's give you a little bit. Here we go, here we go. Here we go, stay centered now. Don't worry about the speed, stay centered. Oh man, you gotta stay centered, man. There you gotta go. Get right there. You stay centered. You lock into that center. Don't worry about those angles. Don't worry about that speed. When you start to pick up speed, don't try to lean back to slow down. You can't slow down. Nothing can stop you now. Nothing can stop you now. Woo! Woo! You're a real life skateboarder now. You couldn't fake that. You just rolled down 2 small hills.
That takes skill, right?
You okay? Borderline champion. It's just the beginning. You're still young. You can be pro by 35. Great work.
Impressive effort, right?
Yeah, it really was, man.
Get an A for effort.
You know what I mean? I thought you were just going to keep leaning back till you snapped 2 arms, and you didn't, man. You just went for it.
Would have been cool to show, though.
There was a small part of me that thought it'd be fun if you ended up on Ridiculousness. You know? But you didn't.
Well, hey, I had a blast here today, from doing the stunt to this to sitting down to talk to you, and I really appreciate you making the time. It was a lot of fun.
Okay, feel free to stay here and do whatever you want, man. Jump around, maybe try to dunk. If you want to take one of the cars out and try to flip it, feel free.
Sounds good.
You know what I mean?